For millennia, people have learned and solved problems through personal effort and conversations. But it seems that nowadays, a lot of the work, or at least part of the work in software development and in learning in schools, is done solitary. And the question I want to ask you today is, will AI change this? Do we see the resurgence of conversational learning and conversational problem solving? That's what I want to discuss now. Welcome back to Think Design Work Smart. I'm Alex Bolboaca and I'm coming at you from the Mozaic Works studios. And today I want to talk about conversational learning and conversational problem solving. This is more of an essay style video. Normally we discuss some more concrete steps, but since this is the beginning of the year, I was thinking about looking at some potential deeper changes in the way we learn and in the way we work. Let's talk about the anthropological frame first. For many, many years, imagine people in tribes and in the ancient Greece, people have discussed, have conversed in order to solve problems and in order to learn from each other. Reading and writing was incredibly rare. The ability to read and write led, though, to the possibility of people reading in silence and learning in silence and eventually solving problems in silence. But for most of human history, knowledge has been transferred through dialogue. So this is a more natural way of working problems and of learning. And the question I am pondering today is, will AI assistants result into a return and a resurgence to a conversational style of learning? And let's explore a little bit what this would mean. First, let's look at software development, because this is what we usually discuss on this channel, but we'll also discuss about general learning. In software development, we have attracted a specific kind of personality. People who prefer to work alone for hours in silence. And yes, with agile software development and methods, this has slightly changed. You need to be more collaborative. You need to communicate more inside the team. But there's still a big friction here, because whenever I was doing agile coaching, this was one of the big challenges. Taking people who are not used to communicate, to have dialogues, to have productive conversations, work together in a team that is trying to deliver, to solve one thing, to have a single goal. So the question is, did we actually select in this way not necessarily the best programmers, but the people who are best at solo work? And that's a very intriguing question. I also see this tension with the reaction of certain programmers today when we discuss about introducing AI assistants for development. It seems like they want to work solo. They want to work in their own world. Okay, maybe they want to do pair programming, but still in a limited conversation. in a, let's say, more a conversation with specific rules where you can you don't spend that much time exploring openly, but more in a set of specific communication protocols. So perhaps the industry can move forward if we enable brilliant conversationalists to join the field. And if you have an AI assistant, this is what could happen. If you have an AI assistant that can help you learn about the field, understand existing code, maybe generate code for you, you will still need to verify the code. I am pretty certain of this. But there's this aspect, right? Another thing is entering a team. So when you join a team, you need to learn a lot of things related to how the team works and the current architecture and the things that you can and cannot do and so on. What if instead of learning those from linear documents or from interconnected wikis, you could learn that in a non-linear manner through exploration, based on what you want to learn, what would be next. Now, I'll be the first to say that I know certain people like the linear style, and that's perfectly fine. What I'm saying is that maybe we can enable also a non-linear style of learning based on documentation plus AI assistance. And this actually links to the way we learn in school. The current way of learning in school is adapted to an industrial society and sometimes to an agrarian society, where you get one person in front of the room delivering a linear presentation, a linear lecture that you need to learn and be able to reproduce or to use in order to solve problems or to use in order to create projects. But there's this tension of having linearity in the way you learn, opposed to what seems to be a more natural way, which would be conversations. What if you could have a conversation with your teacher, and instead of going through the different topics in a linear way, you just ask about various things? So I don't know how to do that. Oh, that sounds interesting. I'm curious about that, and so on. And again, maybe it's not for everybody, but my feeling is that children up to a certain age, they are very curious, and then we kind of kill the curiosity through this linear industrialized learning environment. Now, it doesn't mean that we need to have the same model for everyone. Maybe we can have both, because there are still some people who, or there will be people who enjoy linear style learning. And I'm also wondering about something else. Conversations have become the norm for the younger generations because they are always connected. They are always connected through message groups and social networks, and they are always part of a conversation. So what seems to us as people not having a large enough attention span could also be the fact that they are involved in these conversations more than they are involved in solo linear reading or learning. So maybe not only we can have a more conversational style learning, but maybe we can also have, maybe we'll need to have this conversational style learning in order to better fit the natural ways in which the younger generations are used to. And maybe this is what needs to happen both in schools and in the workplace to make this all work. So how would this change the way we work and the way we learn? I don't have complete answers, of course. This is just an essay. I'm just trying to figure out these things, and it's still an open question that I'm exploring. But one of the things we can take into account is structuring documentation in a way that is usable by an AI assistant to create a tutor experience, a nonlinear experience. So imagine you get, let's say you want to learn about microservices. You have a few options. You can go read a book, you can go to a course where you'll get a linear progression of topics, or, and there's, let me make a parenthesis here, there is always a tension when building these kinds of learning programs, which I'm doing. It's my main job other than maintaining systems and doing a lot of work, but this is a large part of my work. When I create these programs, it's always a challenge to take a fundamentally nonlinear area and structure it in a way that allows people to grasp within 4 afternoons. But that is not the only thing, right? Because ideally you'd have these interconnected topics form a graph, and then have an assistant that can guide you through that graph in a way that allows you to progress based on how you prefer to explore the topics, instead of how your trainer or your teacher prefers to explore the topics. The same thing can happen with documentation for a project. Maybe you have a set of ADRs, a set of diagrams, documentation for the architecture. You have some procedures, you have some ways of creating and solving problems. You have some existing patterns. These are all interconnected nodes, and a smart enough assistant will be able to collect those. And when a new developer joins the team, you'd go and ask that assistant, okay, so what do I need to learn? And it will list the main topics. And then you say, okay, I want to learn more about microservices in the context of this organization. And then the assistant could say, okay, let me give you an example. This is an example of a microservice, how we do it. This is, these are the trade-offs, and so on. What other questions do you have? And then you start asking more questions. Do you want to learn more about this topic? Yes or no? Okay, now let's see if you remember. Let me ask you a few questions, and you need to answer those questions. Or let's go through a test, and you go through a test quiz or something, and you learn a little bit more about the topic. And for some people, this will not work because they prefer to read stuff in a linear manner. That's perfectly fine. But I believe that for others, this conversational style of learning will be very beneficial. Another idea that we can consider is the conversational way of solving problems. Because I think that what happens until now is that many developers take the problem, they make a mental model of it, they analyze it, they write the code or whatever they do. You can do test-driven development, splitting the problem into smaller problems. You anyway do a kind of incremental thinking because you have to for more complicated problems. But the difference is in how structured your practice is. But another way of doing that is through conversations, right? So converse with a partner and say, okay, this is the problem that I have. Oh, interesting. So let's see what are some questions that I might have. How do we do that, and that? Ah, interesting. And so on. And then how might we solve that? And then we write the code. And you can enable this style of development with the help of AI assistants. And it's a style for general problem solving that doesn't necessarily apply to development only. It can apply to anything that surrounds, that has to do with problem solving. And to me, this is a very intriguing idea. I don't know if this will happen, but I find it fascinating that it might happen. So let me ask you now, what do you think about this? Would you prefer a more conversational style, or would you prefer a more linear solo type learning and developing and problem solving? What are your thoughts about that? It's a new year. We can now open our imaginations a bit and figure out how we might change the world. Thank you kindly for the view, and until next time, remember to think, design, and work smart. See you next Saturday.